Good evening and welcome back to Red Wave USA. My name is Ross Rods. I'm very excited to be back with you once again for what is our 14th episode. We have continued to persevere and we have continued to push this show through. I couldn't be more excited with the progress we're making. But again, on this Wednesday afternoon, we have some interesting topics to talk about. So the first of which, we're going to talk a little bit about the politics of this entire government shutdown, or rather the government reopening, and talk about the Democratic politics and how this all really played out for the Democrats. Obviously, there's a lot of anger from the left for kind of giving up on their position for those 8 Democrats that did vote yes to reopen the government. We'll get into that in a little more depth. We're also going to talk about a report coming out of California, UC Berkeley to be exact, a Turning Point USA event on the campus where these events have been held in the past, was actually met with a large protest with what seems to be Antifa members along with left extremists, just causing absolute chaos. So we'll get more into that, and that will be it for today's episode. I couldn't thank you guys enough for tuning in and continuing to watch these episodes. It just fills me with gratitude to actually have some sort of a platform. So again, thank you for tuning into Red Wave USA. Wednesday, November 12th. We are what seems to be on the back end of a government shutdown. The vote will actually take place in the Senate today, finalizing this funding bill to be pushed through the Senate and sent back to the House. This is after 8 Democrats decided to flip on their Democratic coalition and vote yes for this funding bill. And again, I went over the specifics of this funding bill in the last episode, but we'll go through it again. This funding bill is actually going to fund the government through basically all of January. I believe it's January 30th of 2026. This is also going to fund programs like SNAP. That's going to actually be funded through September of 2026. All federal workers that were working during this shutdown and not being paid, there's back pay involved. And military pay is also involved, obviously, in this funding bill as well. Also, the main reason that we got some of the Democrats to flip was we promised to go over this legislation regarding their whole healthcare fight. We're going to go over that again in December. There was a mandatory clause within the legislation that provides that we'll go back through it sometime in December. So I believe that's why at least 8 of the Democrats decided, hey, more important thing here is to get the government open rather than sit here and put American lives at risk, right? But anyways, what I wanted to really talk about was the politics of this entire kind of shutdown. Let's look at the time period of when this took place first. This started in around the beginning of October is when this shutdown really kind of took place. And let's remember, so if you take October, what month comes after October? Obviously, we go into November. This is 1 month before their key elections, right? We're looking at, they're making this stand of not wanting to fund the government through the whole healthcare thing 1 month before the elections. Do you see it now? Do you understand that the Democrats were pushing this for themselves? It makes me think more and more that Democrats aren't for the people like they say they are. They're for the mass of people, and that's not the case. They're for themselves. This whole government shutdown was a big political ploy. From what I'm seeing now you have Democrats that are saying, oh, it's okay to pass this legislation. It's okay to fund the government again. We got past the elections. We won in large margins in states that, even in Virginia, a state that is historically somewhat red. And they took that. And why do you think? Because of this government shutdown. They placed all the blame on Trump and Republicans. And apparently that affected the public. And in a previous episode, I don't remember which one, but I remember sitting there and saying Democrats will use this shutdown, their own shutdown that they caused. They voted 15 times against funding the government. They will use that for political gain. They will use that to get people elected because it's all politics. At the end of the day, every decision made is politics. But this more evident than ever. You have a shutdown that's occurring a month before an election. But I said this in a previous episode. I said they would use this government shutdown as leverage to win in elections. But I also made a mistake in what I said. I previously stated that they would use this government shutdown that's happening in the year of 2025, they would use that in the presidential election in 2028. And the mistake is, I didn't think they would use it as a ploy for these elections in the year 2025. I didn't think that it would be so quick that they would use that as their ploy. No, and of course they distracted as they're pushing for these healthcare subsidies. No, it's all politics. The entire thing is politics. It's all political ploy. You saw them coming on the media every day, whether it was Hakeem Jeffries or it was Chuck Schumer. You saw them coming on saying this is a Trump shutdown. Republicans are refusing to negotiate with us. We did. We brought multiple amendments to this funding bill. We were the ones amending this over and over and over and trying these votes. And the Democrats shot them down every single time, 15 times to be exact. So how are you not seeing that this is a political ploy? It was specifically for political gain. And I didn't think that they would use it so quick, but they did. And again, they're going to use it in the midterms in 2026, and they're going to use it again in the presidential election of 2028. But this is where the American people need to see through this. But it seems to have worked out for them. They had some of the largest margins in wins that we've ever seen. I mean, Mandami in the mayoral election in New York, he won by an outrageous margin. I mean, again, it is New York. It's always been blue. If you were to add Curtis Sliwa's votes with Andrew Cuomo, the independents' votes, if you were to add them both up, they still wouldn't beat Mandami. And again, they used this shutdown for that exact reason, to make sure that they could pick up the extra seat, to make sure that they could get the governor seat. Right? It's all a political ploy. And hey, good on them, because it seemed to have worked with how much margins we saw. Smart on their part. But again, you need to see through this. And I talk to people on the fence that are looking at the Republicans that are thinking, oh, maybe it is their fault that we're in this shutdown. You need to see through the Democratic bullcrap. You need to see through that they are using this as a political gain, as a political show. And it's costing you, the American citizen. It's costing us. It's costing people on SNAP. It's costing federal workers. It's costing our military, none of which are getting funding. But again, the Democrats are okay sacrificing that as long as they get the seat. As long as they get elected, they're fine with that. They're fine letting you struggle, watching you struggle, as long as they're elected. As long as this political point works in their favor. So hey, yeah, good strategy. It is. But we need to be able to see through that. But you look at these 8 Democrats that voted yes. Suddenly, after the elections, it seems like a good time to vote for this bill. Vote to fund the government and open the government. Suddenly, after we're past the election season in this year, now you can do it. It's the most obvious political ploy there is. But this is it. This is the last time. You got me, Democrats, right? I didn't think you'd use it so quick, this leverage or whatever, but you did. But we need to wake up and realize what they're doing. And it could happen again in the future. I really wouldn't doubt that the Democrats push for another shutdown over some other piece of legislation that they want passed, because it did. It worked out well for them. But again, you need to look past it. There's nothing else I can say. We need to be able to look past their political ploy, right? But that's all I'll really say on that subject. I just think us as American citizens need to realize what the Democratic Party is doing. And you need to look past it so this doesn't happen again, especially in the midterms. I mean, historically, when we have the executive office, when Trump's been in office, we've really gotten killed in the midterms because Democrats are good at doing this. They're good at pushing political gain, right? Anyways, that's all I'll really say on that, on the whole policy and political gain of the Democratic shutdown, which the Democrats, they gained a lot from it. But we're not going to let that happen again. Obviously, Trump floated the whole nuclear option thing, getting rid of the filibuster. So if this does happen again, I'm sure that will be the first thing implemented. And I hope so, because we're not going to let Democrats get away with this again. We're not going to let Democrats leverage the American people to get their way. As I said previously, we're not going to let them leverage people on SNAP, people in our military, federal workers. We're not going to let Democrats leverage the American people. That's not going to happen again. Anyways, that's all I wanted to really talk about regarding that. We have another rather somber or serious topic to get into, and that was in California, wouldn't you know it, at UC Berkeley, one of the most liberal institutions of all time in our nation. We've seen a lot of news come out of there. You don't want to be a Republican going to UC Berkeley, that's for sure. But Turning Point USA held an event at UC Berkeley. As speaker, I believe it was Rob Schneider. He was speaking, and how these events usually go is they introduce their guest and they take questions. It's a question and answer format. Republicans or even people on the fence, anybody is welcome. You're able to come up and you have a voice, you have a mic in front of you, you're allowed to ask questions. It's free speech on its biggest platform, for conservatives at least. Even if you are a far left liberal, go in there and ask your questions where you have doubts. That's what the whole point of this is for. It's for explaining the conservative agenda. But no, far left liberals don't even want to give you the chance to explain your side. There is no civility. There is no debating these far left liberals. You guys have passed that. We're past this stage. You want to completely silence the conservative agenda. You want to completely silence all conservatives, no matter who they are. No matter if it's a child even. We saw out of this whole protest thing, and I'll pull up videos throughout me talking about this, of this whole altercation. I mean, this was going on the entire event. It started at about 4 o'clock, is what I think they said. It started with a man, a white male, wearing a Charlie Kirk Freedom shirt and a cross necklace being attacked by a protester. His cross necklace being ripped off of his neck as he's on the ground, and because he was involved in an altercation, he was fighting back, because that's where we're at right now. We're done being kicked and punched and assaulted. We're gonna fight back now. But he was fighting back after he was assaulted, and you can see his face is all bloody. I'll try and pull up that picture now. His face is all bloodied up. The necklace was ripped off of his neck by a far left protester. But that's okay. We're fine. This is, again, the left pursuing this whole political violence route. And it's, again, we said this from the whole Charlie Kirk instance when he was assassinated, murdered by a far leftist. We said this at every point. We said this at the ICE shooting. They don't care. They want to silence you. They want to scare you into submission, scare you against your own ideals, scare you of being public about your ideals. This was the last stop on the TPUSA tour, the American Comeback Tour, the one that Charlie was doing. They were finishing this for him since he was gunned down. They were finishing his event, his tour. But we have claims of, they're chanting and harassment, assaults of the attendees. They even clashed with police. I mean, how immature do you have to be? But we're going to keep seeing this more and more, and it's only going to ramp up the closer we get to 2028. This far left ideology is becoming wide and, throughout the Democratic Party. That seems to be their main policy now. Democrats are all expected to file in line to this far left progressiveness. That's the expected, that's where you got to be. That's the quota. If you're not far left, if you're not a far left progressive socialist, you're not with us. You're not part of the movement. There is no critiquing throughout their own party. They're all together in this far left category. And sadly, that far left category is rampant with violence against conservatives and apparently against whites. Apparently that's who they're targeting as well. I'll pull up this video now of the white guy being assaulted or being arrested because he got in a fight. Because somebody was assaulting him and he was sticking up for himself.
Break it up! Break it up! Break it up! Police! Break it up! Police! Break it up! Hey, white boy! Break it up! You're bleeding, bitch! Yep. Hey, white boy! You're bleeding, white boy! Hey, white boy! White boy! You're bleeding! Break it up! What happened? What happened, white boy? Relax. Take a deep breath. Relax. Relax. What happened, white boy? Hey, white boy, what the fuck happened?
Guys tried to rob me. Okay.
You guys step back, please. You guys can film, but just... Hey, you got cracked on. You got cracked. Give me your other hand. Give me your other hand. Can you please move away from me? What's that?
You see in that video, looks like you're bleeding, white boy. Looks like you're hurt, white boy. You want to talk about reverse racism? There it is. You want to call Republicans and conservatives the racists? How can you do that when you're spewing the same exact thing but just to white people? It's hypocrisy. You're doing the same exact thing. You know what the definition of insanity is? It's repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. So again, these far leftists continue to go do these protests, claiming they're mostly peaceful, and you expect a different outcome. You expect that your far left emotions aren't going to get the better of you and you're not going to attack conservatives. But look what happens every single time. Every time. And this wasn't your event. This wasn't a Democratic event. This was a Turning Point USA event where you are welcome to go in and ask questions. And you will be provided an answer. But no, like all good things, liberals have to ruin it. And it's just immature. I don't know what else to say about it. It's disgusting. This has no place in America. This political violence that these far leftists are pushing has no place in American politics. Or no place in America, for that matter. When are you going to realize that you are fighting for the wrong side? When are people on the left, or even people that aren't in this far left progressiveness, which most of them are, when are they going to wake up and realize, man, I do not want to be associated with this. I don't want to be a part of this. And again, it is your right. It is your First Amendment right to go and protest. That's fine. I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is how every one of these protests ends up with a story that I'm sitting here talking about. That ends up with a violent story. Because this, whether it's Antifa or whether it's far left radicals, are assaulting conservatives. Here's this video here of a mother who took her son, which I will be doing the same thing when I have my kids. But you see this mother, they're walking out of the TPUSA event, and they're screaming obscenities at them? At a child? Again, there's no morals here. There's none. Morality from these far left progressives it's exited. It's out the door. You're screaming obscenities at a child and a mother, leaving an event. No altercation with you at all. But again, you like to start these altercations. It's sickening. It's really sickening. And that was part of the whole motivation of me starting this, of me starting a platform to give people or spread awareness to the conservative movement that, listen, we're here and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So for all you protesters assaulting conservatives, throwing out obscenities at conservatives, and children for that matter, this is going to be dealt with in due time. And I hope you know that. Trump has already declared Antifa as a terrorist organization. So that's step one. Step two will be enforcement. As soon as we get word that Antifa is going somewhere and violent tendencies are in the playbook, that will be shut down. And if these far leftists start falling in line with Antifa, you're going to be dealt with the same exact way. There is no room for this violence. We're done. How many times do we have to get up on a platform and talk about this stuff? How many times are Democrats, Democratic legislators, and Democratic leaders, how many times are you going to sit idly by and let your constituents do this? We've had no word from Gavin Newsom, governor of California, regarding this, because he's not going to condemn it, because he'll get backlash from his own party. They don't want to condemn violence? Like, get a clue. Nobody. I did my research before I got on this show, and I looked at, has anyone condemned this event that went down at Turning Point in UC Berkeley? Nothing. There was actually a report that Gavin Newsom is radio silent. No, because it takes someone to die, apparently. It takes someone to die for people to actually come together and realize that it's wrong. Obviously, we saw that for a little bit. We had a little bit of peace until the ICE shooting. After Charlie Kirk was murdered, we had, a month of peace? September was mostly peaceful until the ICE shooting in the beginning of October. Just apparently it costs lives for people to realize that this is not okay. These far left ideologies are not okay, and that they have no room in our country. But that should never be the case. It should never be the case that it costs a human life to be silenced, for people to open up and go, oh, hey, oh, man. Probably should tone it down a little bit. No, but it seems like we're just ramping up right again. And this is the kickoff here. The protesters' assault on the Turning Point event. Here it is. A call to Trump here. Here it is. It's starting to ramp up again. We need to do something about it. It's going to get out of control. Somebody's going to die again. Because this is what they do. And I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of having to come on here and talk about how under fire conservatives are. And we don't do anything about it. We sit back and we take the back seat and we're like, all right, it'll blow over. It's not blowing over. Liberals are continuing to push violent rhetoric, violent actions, assaulting on conservatives. And we're done. I don't have any other words to say. We're done with it. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. I know I get a little into it because it really pisses me off. I shouldn't have to go to a Republican event like a Turning Point event, like a memorial for Charlie Kirk that I went to recently, like a rally. I shouldn't have to go to that and worry about being assaulted by the protesters outside of the event, the liberal protesters outside of the event. I shouldn't have to worry about being assaulted, about being I'm fine being heckled. I'm a man. I can deal with it. But I shouldn't have to worry about this constant worry for my safety, for conservative safety. That should never be a worry at all. But that's the day and age we live in, and that's the rhetoric that the left wants to push. And notice how you have your protests, you have your No Kings or whatever. Show me articles where conservatives were attacking liberal protesters. You're marching all over the streets and nobody's preventing you from doing that. Oh, but when we want to do it, when we want to hold events like Turning Point USA or hold any Republican event for that matter, it's a problem and it needs to be dealt with from the left. They decide that they're going to do something about it. They're going to try and silence you in whatever way they can. We're done. We're strictly done, and that's the only words that I have. Despite all the violence and the protests that happened outside of the Turning Point event, I guess reports from Turning Point, the event went off without a hitch. They were inside just fine. Rob Schneider spoke on his talking points. They answered questions just like a normal Turning Point USA event. So liberals, if your goal was to completely disrupt the event, you failed. You failed. That event went off without a hitch. And plenty of people at that event got to learn about the conservative movement. As much as that may anger you, you did nothing. But again, I just wanted to mention this because it's another case of liberals just providing us with more substance. Add it to the case file. It's already a book of how many instances we've had of political violence from the left. And you want to comment on my videos and show me that Republicans are the cause of political violence. No, you're not defending yourself. You are the problem right now. Your rhetoric. Do I need to get into that again? You know how many comments on my videos I get calling me a Nazi, a racist, a fascist, a nationalist? This is the exact rhetoric that leads to it. You're pushing these people, these far left people that will believe anything you say, and you're pushing these people to go do things like this. We need to assault all conservatives because they are spewing hate and they're spewing bad rhetoric. They are bad for our country. Not saying it nicely. They say it more. They're racists. They're fascists. Nazis. You want to compare us to the Nazi? You want to compare conservatives to Nazi Germany? Again, I sit back and I laugh at how this low IQ movement is. But no, they just want to take the most hard-hitting words, the most viral words that they can find, and throw it at conservatives. But they want to say that conservatives are spewing hate. Charlie Kirk was spewing hate. Conservative media members constantly just spew hate. The whole conservative movement is just talking about hate. You are doing the exact same thing. The hypocrisy levels inside your own party are at an all-time high. Again, when you spew these words of hate, like Nazi and fascists and racists, you are doing the same thing that you're claiming. You're a hypocrite. Not to mention the fact that Charlie was never a racist. He gave you the microphone, in fact. He gave you the microphone to sit and debate with him and ask any questions that you may have had. So sit there and provide your evidence that conservatives are racists and Nazis, compare them to Nazis. But we can't do that anymore because you took away the person that would ask those questions or answer those questions. You killed him. But again, apparently that's what you guys are resorting to now. Liberals are resorting to. I know it's sort of a shorter episode today. I just wanted to go over these two kind of big newsworthy items with the politics of the shutdown and this whole TPUSA protest / attack. I wanted to highlight these items and bring them to you, bring them to the platform, because they're things that need to be talked about. They're talking points that need to be in our conservative mind, in our conservative space. It's something that needs to be debated. Questions need to be asked. Something needs to be done, rather. As for the politics of the shutdown and Democrats just wanting to do this as a show and political ploy, something needs to be done. These on-the-fence voters, independent voters, you need to be able to look past that. In this TPUSA, UC Berkeley violent protest, something needs to be done regarding that too. But anyways, that will do it from Red Wave USA. Again, my name is Ross Rotz. I couldn't thank you enough for tuning in once again. This has been a joy for me to come to you and speak on these political matters. Trying to branch our outreach a little bit, or kind of extend our outreach rather, and get to more platforms. I'm on Truth Social now. Get a lot more positive, feedback on that than I do on TikTok, that's for sure. But I think we're going to start going live. I think we're going to slowly transition this show into a live kind of environment, and we'll just post the live onto the YouTube after. But that way I can take questions. I can sit here. If there is liberals in the chat, I can sit here and answer these questions, because apparently that's where we are at. I need to explain the conservative movement and how it's not racist and fascist. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in to Red Wave USA. My name is Ross Rotz. Happy Wednesday, and have a great rest of your week.